Okay, welcome back. So we've stylized our mug, our wine glass. Looking okay right now. I'm gonna slide that right up in there. Actually, let's do this. Let's do some precautionary steps first. Let's go up here and do an object group. So that if we do start moving around, with it being invisible to a point, we don't start losing stuff in transit. So we'll we'll do that. Now I just noticed something. If you look at our wine glass, I didn't quite get that built just right earlier in our video. You see that blue gap. Actually, I did get it built just right, but with us taking away the stroke of our elements, that gap has reappeared. So we have to go back. We have to fix it. Object, ungroup, click off of it. Now we need to go back with our direct selection tool, find that center anchor point on the stem and slide it up. Get rid of that blue gap there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a file save so I don't lose that correction. I'm going to go view, fit artboard and window so I don't lose anything. Slide that down. And I'm going to go back up and group it again. Slide that up. Alright. Now, here's what I want to do now. I want to create some color for our wine. Looks kind of bland, white. In this process, we're going to use another new tool. We're going to use the gradient tool, or the gradient, to create a color. And to adjust that, we're going to use the gradient tool over here on our tool palettes. But before we can use this, we have to create the tools over here, or the color over here. So let's start off by selecting the top part of our wine. And we're going to create two specific colors to create our gradient. We're going to create a light red wine color, and we're going to create a dark red wine color. We also need our color swatches out. We need that to be visible as well, because we're going to actually make a color. So select that, and we're going to go over here to our fill box, and we're going to double click on that. Now, just like in the effects tool for the wine glass, we could put a what they call a hex number here, but in this case we're going to actually use the RGB color for this. What we're going to start out with is the light color, the R, red. We want to leave that. You notice that they're defaulted to 255. That's for white. We're going to leave the red at 255. We're going to go down to the green, the G, and we're going to type in 0, hit the tab key. You notice now up here in this box the change color is kind of a purple. That's because red and blue make purple. We're going to change the blue to a 0 as well, and now we've got a red. Let's click OK. You notice up here that our object has changed to a red. Our fill box is a red. And over here on the gradient, this is a red. But we want to make sure that we've got this color already created. So we click and hold with our mouse on the fill box and we drag it all the way over here to our color swatches. And you notice that blue box outline and you see the green plus sign on my mouse. That means that I'm inside the color swatches. All I have to do is let go of the mouse and suddenly I've got a new color. Now you notice that it's in CMYK. I default my software to the CMYK process. But if I double click on this, I now get the color code for CMYK and I've got the swatch name for that. I want to name that. It's highlighted. I want to name it light red wine. And I click OK. That doesn't disappear. It now has light red wine. Now, I'm going to go back to my fill with that part still selected, and I'm going to double click on it again. And now I'm going to change my R color code to 104. You notice that it changed to a dark kind of burgundy color. I'm going to leave my green and my blue alone again, and I'm going to click OK. You notice now the top of my wine turned to the dark burgundy. The gradient fill color is the dark burgundy, and my fill box is dark burgundy. Click and drag it over to my swatches, drop it, double click, name it dark red wine, and click OK. We've created two different colors, both in the red, but one's darker. Now, with this still selected, we are going to take each one of these and drop them on this gradient slider. Okay, watch what happens when I drag the first color up there, the dark red. I'm going to take it all the way over to the right hand side, the darkest side of the gradient bar, and I'm just going to drop it. You notice now that I've got two houses that have been placed on that bar and a diamond. These houses can be adjusted. You notice over here that that color of my wine has now changed to a white and a burgundy. All the way to the right is 100% that way. If I slide this diamond, I can adjust where that gradient starts to fill in. It's set at a 50% mark, halfway between. Okay? We can adjust the angle, but we're not going to play around with that right now. With this still selected and this dark burgundy on the right, we want to now drag our light red wine up and drop it on the white little house. Now we've got a gradient. Let's go ahead and make this our wine color. Just drag it from the fill box, put it on our swatches, double click. Now you notice that there's no other instructions, but it says new gradient swatch number 1. Let's name it red wine gradient. And click OK. Again, we hover over, double check, red wine gradient. We're going to go ahead and take our color stroke off of this. All we have to do now is apply. Let's turn our stroke off on the bottom part of our wine and just click on our red wine gradient And now we've got our wine. Now, this gradient tool over here affects how this slider looks. If we click on that, you notice that we get a white bar with a white dots, or when we hover over it, it's a black dots with the color of our gradient. If I just click and drag with that object selected, I change the direction of my gradient. You just notice. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, go back to my gradient tool. You notice that now it's like this. When you hover over it, you see where your colors are. This is where the light red is. This is where the dark burgundy is. Let me go over here. Okay. You got to be careful though, but based on what you do to this, because now it kind of looks the way the dark red is way over here and the lighter red is over here. Let's just show you a little bit better. If I put the stroke back on, it now looks like it's a bowl. We don't want that effect. So play around with your gradient tool and get it to look kind of the way you want it to look. Make sure you've turned your stroke off. And just play. Okay. Remember, you have to have the object selected to adjust that gradient. But you want to try and get it to look kind of like it's lined up. Alright? Now, I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select both pieces of my wine. And I'm going to go ahead and group them for now, because I'm going to go ahead and move them up into our wine glass. Interesting. Our groups. There's our wine group, or wine glass group. Let's name that. Okay. And wine. Okay. Now, what's the problem here? Exactly. Our wine in our stacking layer is behind our wine glass. Let's do this. Slide our wine up to the top. There we go. There's our wine glass and wine. There's one last effect that we need to create to finish off this wine glass. And that's to give it kind of a shimmer, a shine to this glass where our wine is at. Okay? To do that, we're going to use another effect, a new effect, and we're going to use our pen tool. Let's go ahead and get the magnifying glass, zoom in, and we're going to be working right in here on the top part of our wine glass. Here you can see that glow, that inner glow, a little bit better right through here. We've put our wine in the glass, so it's not that visible. Let's go up here to our pen tool, and let's just click. Pull out a handle a little bit, because we want to give it a little bit of shape. We're going to pull it up in one direction and then hold our option key down and pull it down to go down in this direction. Give it kind of an arc effect. Option, bring it back up. We're not really going to have too much of a glow. Now, look, forgot to turn off our gradient. Let's change this. Select it, change it to white. Now, doesn't really look like it's there as a shimmer on our glass. Just kind of looks like there's a hole cut in our wine. Well, let's select that object that we just created. And remember, no stroke on it. Let's go up to the effects tool, stylize, and instead of inner glow or outer glow or drop shadow or anything like that, let's give it a feather effect. This is kind of cool. Now, there's only one option. The default right now on my screen is 4 pixels, but we're only affecting the radius of that. If I just click on preview, you notice that it gives it that feathered effect. There's some of it taken away, but there's a brighter spot. Okay? It kind of looks okay. It's kind of still hard to see whether or not it looks alright with the bounding box around it. Play around with it. The bigger the number, the lighter it gets. We don't really want the 7 on this one. Maybe a 5. 3 is too much. It's still looking awful white. 4. I'm gonna go with a 5. Let's see what that looks like. That's at a 4. Okay, you see how it looks. You can always go back, select it, effect, stylize, feather. You'll have to apply a new effect. That looks pretty good. That's actually a double effect. Remember when I went down to a 3 on it the first time, it was still pretty big on this feathered effect. I applied the 3 this time on top of that 4. I think it looks pretty good. Well, that finishes out our wine glass. I hope you enjoyed it. And try using the compound path, the Pathfinder tool on other projects. Try making your own colors. Enjoy.